FutureBuilt vision is to show that climate-neutral buildings and urban areas based on high-quality architecture are possible. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm impressed so many people are still here at the end of the day. So I think I'm trying to tell my story through lots of pictures. And it's very nice to be here in this beautiful building, and also very nice to come to Tallinn, for me also for the first time. So I'm going to tell you how we have used architecture as pilot for creating awareness and enthusiasm around how to fight climate change, at least within the building sector and urban planning. We believe in the power of a good example. And new buildings and refurbishment of old buildings is happening all the time. And new city areas is to be developed, so why not find a way of doing this more sustainable and climate friendly? So, like you said, our vision is to show it's possible to develop climate neutral architecture in urban area with high quality. And our working method is to facilitate the development of full-scale pilot projects in cooperation with ambitious municipalities and private as well as public developers. So the target of the program is to develop 50 pilots with 50% reduced carbon footprint. It's a very easy target to remember. And we are actually there already. We have been running this program for 9 years now, and now we have 50 projects in our portfolio, and we're still adding more, and 23 of them is already built, and the rest is on the planning phase or under construction. And at this picture you see some of them. City areas as well as single buildings like schools, kindergartens, office building, housing projects, cultural buildings, and even facilities for bicycle parking. So FutureBuilt has worked as a huge arena for innovation and learning, and a national and international showcase it has developed to, for developers and architects and consultant entrepreneurs, municipalities, and of course for the program itself. The whole process actually started out, it's a kind of bottom-up process. It started out with the two of us, it's me and my colleague Stein, and both we were working at the National Association of Norwegian Architects, running a program with different kinds of environmental projects. And we were arranging study trips to Austria and Switzerland and Denmark and other places, bringing architects and developers to see how they made passive houses, and especially from Austria and Switzerland, how they made new modern buildings in wood. But not very much happened home in Norway. And the architects said, well, we want to do sustainable projects, but the developers are not asking for it. And the developers said that, well, we want to do sustainable projects, but the architects, Norwegian architects, do not have the right competence. So then we came up with the idea of the FutureBuilt program to kind of match this kind of people and challenges. Then the first thing we did was to start to gather partners. Of course, we had the one partner that was the National Association of Norwegian Architects, and then we went to kind of knocked on the door to the neighboring city of Oslo, the city of Drammen, and asked if they asked the mayor, would you join this really cool project of getting exciting architecture to demonstrate the climate-efficient solutions? And the mayor in Drammen thought that was a great idea. And then we went to the city of Oslo, and after then the municipalities of Bærum and Asker also joined after a while. And then also the national authorities, foreign national authorities, and for instance, the Agency for Building Regulations, they joined the process because they saw that working with this pilot project can be a good way to actually demonstrate the future regulations for the future building codes. And then the developer organization is the Norwegian Green Building Council, and then the National Association of Norwegian Architects. So these 10 partners is actually the owners of the program. It's in our board, and we are the FutureBuilt. We are a team of 5 people actually running this program. When we started back in 2010, it was just a handful of passive houses in Norway. And the municipality of Drammen was planning this new school as a low-energy building. But thanks to the cooperation between FutureBuilt, the developer's enthusiastic energy expert, you see the picture of him here, and a little bit of national funding, this project was transformed to a passive house school. And actually the very first passive house school in Norway, and for a long time it was the biggest passive house in the country. And the mayor in Drammen was very proud of this and was telling it all around. And of course, reducing energy consumption and use of clean energy resources is one of the most important goals for the FutureBuilt project. And it is important in order to reduce the climate footprint from buildings. But it's not the only one. Because the second important goal is the reduction of the climate gas emissions from the materials, the so-called embodied energy. This new data hall and meeting center for the Norwegian Meteorological Institute, in addition to being a passive house, added another innovative aspect. It was the first building in Norway realized with low-carbon concrete. And this was it was finished back in 2011 or 12 or something. So this is a few years ago. And then the third goal is transport. All the FutureBuilt projects has to contribute to the reduction of transport. This means that they have to be located close to hubs for public transport, have a reduced amount of space for parking private cars, but also provide good solutions for bicycle parking and facilitate both cycling, walking, and use of public transport. The first year, this was really a complicated issue when we had the communication with the developers. They did not really understand this issue, but after a while, now it's much more integrated into the thoughts of how to do city development. And all our pilots will actually be calculated in this climate gas accounting tool for buildings. This is the account for one of our projects, and as you can see, the emissions from energy, transport, and materials is actually about equal. And the calculation is done for a reference project. This is more business as usual. The projects as designed, the projects as built, and later one in use. And as you see here, the reference project as built, it is actually reduced to half. And it's not, it might be some more costs, but it's not very cost-driven to do it. It's more about to have a willing to be innovative, have a willing to rethink the processes and how you work. But of course, we are lucky. We work with the developers who has an ambition of staying in front and wants to be in front. The rest they have to follow up, and when there comes regulation through the building codes. And of course, like Mr. Grossman said, talked about is not only cutting carbon emissions, it also has to demonstrate good architecture quality and quality especially to the outdoor environment and how to relate to the city and actually giving something back to the city. If not, nobody will get inspired. And we also say that the pilots have to identify at least one innovative aspect or solution, so altogether this whole program is a huge arena for innovation within the building sector and real estate. This office building, this is how it looked after the refurbishment. This is called the Powerhouse. It set a new standard. It was the world's first renovated zero-emission building, completed in 2014. And the old building was stripped down to its main construction and then built up again. And it was built up as a passive house with simplified technical solutions. For instance, this most beautiful ventilation channel in the world, probably most visited too. There has been thousands of people visiting this building because they used the staircase as a channel for ventilation up through the building and kind of saving also energy by using also the natural drive ventilation forces. And with the photovoltaic on the roof and other different innovative stuff, this became a powerhouse. And I think maybe it was the first building one of the first buildings in Oslo that used photovoltaic on the roof. And probably maybe one of the most innovative of these projects was also the way the whole team cooperated through the process of solving this problem with realizing a powerhouse. Because they worked through a series of workshops, the whole team of architects, all the technical consultants, the developer and the entrepreneur sat around the same table and discussed the solutions. The architect company Snøhetta, you probably know it, they're the most famous one in Norway, designing the opera house. They call it the Snøhetta method, but I know other companies also use it. But having put more force into the planning process is important when you're working with doing innovation. And the small municipality of Asker followed up and made this Plus Energy kindergarten based on an architect competition. This roof hat is covered with solar panels, as you can see, but it's also for giving the kindergarten a nice architecture. And it was actually planned to be also part of the ventilation system, but that was it became too expensive. We do use architect competitions as an important tool, and I come back to this in a little while. And the municipality has also worked, Asker has also worked with both the parents and the staff to motivate people to walk, cycle, or use public transport to this kindergarten. And by buying of these cargo bikes for traveling with the kids is part of this project. And the cargo bikes, the families also can borrow from the kindergarten in the weekends. The city of Oslo has we have a very, very ambitious city government in Oslo, and they have decided a goal of realizing all new public buildings built by the municipality as plus energy houses. They are not managed, they're not there yet, but it is the ambition. And this is one of the first plus energy kindergarten under construction. And one of their innovative aspects is that they have covered the facades and the roof with the photovoltaic integrated tiles. And this picture you have already seen today. And ta-da! This is the Norwegian version of 2226. It's not built yet, but it's designed by Snøhetta and the entrepreneur Skanska. The developer of this project, Avantor, we brought Skanska and Avantor to visit Bamstaber Eboli at 2226. And they came home and they were so inspired that they said that we want to realize a project like this in Oslo. Snøhetta and Skanska which they had cooperated at the powerhouse, they said that, well, we think we know how we can do this. And it's made on many of the same principles as 2226, so I'm very glad you described the technical solutions. And with no energy use for neither heating, cooling, nor ventilation. At least at the office part of the buildings. It's the bottom floors is for shops and etc. And then there are some floors with offices, and the top floor is housing. And I think it's a little more. It's changed a little bit since, so it's a little bit more floors with offices, I think, and only housing on the very top. But you can add another zero, because it's zero parking for cars, huge bicycle parking, because this project is located just by one of the main stations for the tram, the Oslo tram. And hopefully this will we start building this project the next summer. Construction in wood is a good way of reducing the carbon footprint from materials if it's done in the right way. And this is a 10-story student house in Oslo built in massive wood. The interesting thing is now that wood construction has actually an 80% market share of the student housing. And the student housing in Norway has pretty strict regulation. They get funding from the state, but they have to be realized in a very tight economical, for tight budget. So it's cost efficient to build in massive wood, because student housing has less strict rule for noise transmission between the flats. So they doesn't have to add so much things inside to prevent the noise transmission. And here in full scale, we have a long tradition of building in wood in Norway, and opposite to Denmark, where all the single-family houses are in brick, we have always used wood. But building higher construction in wood is something that has become more popular the last 10 years, inspired by the modern construction technologies from especially Austria and Switzerland. And there is a kind of ongoing competition on who has the highest wooden tower. And so far, for a while, this is the highest one in Oslo with 10 stories. It's probably not last very long, hopefully. This picture is from one of our field trips. We often do this to showcase the project. And it's a Christian non-profit organization has built this project in one of the suburbs of Oslo, where lots of immigrants are living. Because most people in Norway own their own houses or flats. This has been a policy in Norway ever since the Second World War. So the market for rental houses, the rental house is mostly quite expensive. But this organization realized this housing project for young people and immigrants, and this is houses for rent with high quality and low mortgage. And this project has got a lot of prizes for architecture and use of wooden construction. Made of massive wood, and it is also a near zero energy house, and you can it's solar panels on the roof that goes up here. And it has a very nice social garden in the middle. And this white house in the background is also part of the project. This is a refurbished house, refurbished to low energy standards. This is a nursery home in pipeline. It's going to be built in massive wood. And this with an ambition of being the world's first plus energy building of its kind, the nursery home. And that is quite challenging because a nursery home is, it's running 24 hours a day and every day year round. And it is going to be done by the public developer of the city of Oslo. And this has been a special type of competition, a prize competition between entrepreneurs, and then the architects has joined the team with the entrepreneur. And the proposal was evaluated on both architecture quality, environmental ambition, and of course the price. But price counted less than it used to do in such competitions. Most of our pilot projects is new buildings, but we do also have refurbishment projects. And of course, making existing buildings more sustainable is really important because most of the future buildings are already there. And this one, it is only a small % of the building stock which is renewed every year. This project is also done by the public developer in Oslo and responsible for providing housing for social clients. And this will really be a big change when they are. They was going to refurbish it anyway, and they made contact with the FutureBuilt, and we challenged them on several things. And the energy system will be upgraded with the PVs on the roof, the new wooden facade, and more insulation will also make the building more energy efficient and with a quite new look. And there will also be more space in the flats when the balconies will be integrated. And it has not always been a house for social clients, so the building has a huge parking basement underneath, which is filled up with cars from people living in the neighborhood. Because the social clients, of course, do not own their own cars. And due to Oslo has very high ambitions for the reduction of the use of private cars in the city. So as part of this project, the big parking basement is going to be transformed to what we call a green mobility hub for the neighborhood. And this means a place for parking bicycles and cargo bikes and car-sharing cars and extra space for storage. And hopefully, maybe somebody will start a place for bicycle repairing, and which in turn can give working possibilities for the social clients. And there will also be establish a rooftop garden. And the last couple of years, we have also got bigger projects, like for instance, development of a whole block in the city center called Landbrukskvartalet. This is a transformation of a block where they used to make dairy products. And some of the buildings are of cultural heritage, like the one you see to the right here. Some buildings are just old, or, well, for instance, from the 60s, 70s. And here there will be a mix of new buildings, refurbishment, and on-fill on existing buildings. And so like you see this tower here, which Mr. Grassman is working on actually, is an on-fill on the existing building. And they have an ambition of some projects will be of plus energy, some will be made of wood like this on-fill, and also building made out of principle for circular material use. And with this we mean actually designed for a future reuse of, so you can future reuse of the building, or for instance building components. And the central location will make it possible with no spaces for private cars, and it's really going to be a very nice public space in the interior of this building block. And since this has been a place for dairy products, urban farming will also be an important part of the project, and the developer has actually already started with establishing a kind of rooftop garden at one of the buildings. And densifying the city do challenge the conservation authorities, and the developer Avantor wants to transform this old factory hall with a kind of onfill by building a tower or building on top of the existing buildings. And the planning authorities in the city, I believe, like the project, while the conservation authorities in the same city fight against it. So it will be up to the city council to decide if this innovative transformation project will be realized. We think it's an exciting approach. This is an area just outside of Oslo in the municipality of Bærum, where actually the former airport for Oslo was located until 1998. Now it's still a new development area, and here the biggest housing developer in Norway, called OBOS, is going to develop 700 dwellings. We have cooperated with OBOS with the architect competition, and the vision for this area is to develop what we call a 5-minute city, where you can easily reach the different things you need by walking 5 to 10 minutes. And luckily, there is already a shopping center right next to this area. And the coming tram line, which is not there yet, will go directly from here to the city center. And we have challenged OBOS to realize a mix of sustainability approaches to the different parts of this 700 dwellings area. Some will be made of massive wood, some will be in steel and low carbon concrete, some will be plus energy houses, and also they have promised to make one projects based on circular material use. We think this is a kind of coming topic to have even more focused on the value in the materials. And I do not have a picture of it, but we are working with another developer in the city of Oslo now. They are going to tear down a building, and next to they're going to actually use the concrete, the walls and the building components, and cut it in pieces and reuse it for a small building besides. So they're putting up to the next door. And this new building has only 50 square meters as a footprint. So they're really going to test out this way of reusing actually parts of the buildings. They test it out in a small scale. We just had a trip to the Netherlands with several developers in April to really learn what is the principle of circular economy. So this is quite new to us, and yesterday we had a workshop in another developer on just how to reuse material from a building that is going to be teared down and how to use it in the new project. Yeah, and this is still at OBOS with this very nice garden as a heart of this dwellings area. We are very proud of having as FutureBuilt projects the 3 big cultural buildings which is under construction in Oslo now, which is the Oslo Public Library, the new National Museum, and the museum with the paintings from the world-famous Edvard Munch. He's the one with the scream. You have maybe seen it, the picture Scream. And this is the Munch Museum, and this is how it looked like a few weeks ago when we organized the construction site visit. And the construction is en route. The building will be finished next year and opens for the public with all the paintings in 2020. And all these culture buildings, these 3 ones, are constructed as passive houses, and this is quite ambitious because they have been in the process of planning and design for about 10 years. It takes a long time with such huge buildings. And it's built with low-carbon concrete. And none of them have parking spaces because they're all located in the middle of the city by the fjord and very close to public transport. Emissions from construction in concrete stays for approximately 8% of the climate gas emissions in the world totally. And I told you about low-carbon concrete, which gives 20 to 30% reduction in the carbon footprint. But now we have established a cooperation with the construction industry in Norway to test out the next generation of low-carbon concrete, which has a possible reduction on carbon footprint with 50 to 80%, which is very good. And this type of concrete is already used for building piers and such kinds of installations, but not for buildings yet. And, well, the first one to test out this second generation of low-carbon concrete is the royal family. Because connected to the castle in Oslo, they built a new little logistic building for handling supplies to the castle, and thanks to the environmental engagement of our crown prince, the handsome man in front here, this is now a FutureBuilt project, and here he is participating on our annual conference in June. So we thought that was very fun. And another thing the Crown Prince also is going to do, maybe not by driving this machine himself, will be use this full electric excavator in order to have a zero-emission construction site. Because zero-emission construction sites has become a big issue in Oslo, actually an initiative from one of the public developers, and they got huge attention on this, and they had really started a process involving entrepreneurs and suppliers of machines, etc., to realize it was first fossil-free construction site, but now they go for zero emission, fully electric. We do use architect competitions as much as possible. This means we try to get developers to arrange one or another kind of competitions, including design proposals, and not only price competitions. And this is because this creates a huge arena of capacity building, and you, as you probably know, architects love to compete. And we think to provide the architects with competitions where there's very high environmental ambition, that creates a possibility of gaining new competence. And we see this is also a way of getting innovative solutions on the table. And this team, it's Helen and Hard Architects, is maybe, after Snøhetta, one of the most well-known Norwegian architect companies abroad, and they won the competition with this housing developer Obos. And when they won this competition, that was the first time they do cooperate with Helen and Hard. And competitions also creates a lot of attention in the media and a lot of enthusiasm. And even if these 3 young boys look quite relaxed at this picture, they was pretty surprised when they, still as architect students, beat a lot of experienced architect offices with this in this competition of designing a concept for 4 high-quality bicycle parking hotels connected to the tram station. And with bicycle parking hotel, we mean that it can, it's a safe parking where you can it's kind of a locked system where you can store the bicycle also during the night. So they won with this elegant concept of easily repeatable and flexible wooden ribs. So you might wonder, what is the motivation for the developer to join the FutureBuilt and to make high-quality architecture with a 50% reduced carbon footprint instead of doing business as usual? So our kind of goodie bag is this. The city gives the building application priority and also support with more direct dialogue to find solutions. This is maybe the most tasteful of our goodies, but is also one of the kind of most difficult things, because many of the projects, especially from the private developers, are challenging the overall planning restrictions for the city. So the intentions is not always possible to fulfill. The reduced fee is okay, but it's not that important. The workshop with experts is something the FutureBuilt team organize. We do this one-to-one with the projects, helping to set the environmental ambitions, help to achieve it, and make sure the project gets support from the best expertise in the country, and sometimes you also get expertise from abroad. And we do this through the workshop to keep a kind of control of the costs. And this is a supplement to the project team of architects and consultants and entrepreneurs. And of course, the communication and visibility is not to be underestimated. This is also run by us with construction site visits, like you see here, presentation on conferences, seminars, breakfast meetings, social media, newsletters, and also selling in stories to the media. And the better the projects, the more attention we manage to create. And here is a few of the people who has been involved. There is many mayors, ministers, architects, consultants, developers, entrepreneurs, chief city planners, project managers, environmental experts, and communicators, because it takes all kinds of people to create change. And this is actually why I will finish with this one. In May next year, the world's biggest conference on urban development will take place in Oslo as part of the Oslo European Green Capital Year. We expect 3,000 delegates from all over Europe and the rest of the world, and you will meet fellow architects and all kinds of city changers. It's about smart cities. It's not a smart city conference that focuses on technology, but it's actually focused on how to drive change. And then it's a focus on the people who are driving the change. If you come, you will get a chance to visit many of our FutureBuilt projects on the field trip day, because we are the local organizer of this event, and the program will be launched in a few weeks. I have put on the registration desk, it is a brochure about Urban Future Global Conference, and I also just a few about the FutureBuilt program, but this you also find on our website, of course. So I really hope to meet many of you in Oslo in May next year. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Birgit, for very encouraging presentation. Any questions? People are tired. Well, I have one question. What is the exact role of the Norwegian Association of Architects in FutureBuilt program?
One is historical, because it started out in the association. It could be maybe still be there, but at a certain point the municipalities said that actually the National Association of Norwegian Architects is not putting money into the process. They're more giving it the legitimacy and are spreading the words to the architects. So the 4 municipalities say that we want to be the owner of it. So now the organization is in the board, and we as a secretary, we are 5 people, so we are allocated, we are renting our offices at the National Association. So, and we also do have a tight cooperation with the architect competitions. So we are asking for advice, and often the National Association of Norwegian Architects is actually are also hired in to do to help out with the competitions like they do in other competitions.
Okay. Questions?
You have very challenging projects all over Oslo and Oslo area. What is the biggest obstacle for be successful with all your needs and desires you have to realize the projects?
You mean what is the biggest challenge?
Yeah, the biggest challenge, all that, let's say, the biggest difficulties you have to face to be able to realize them.
Well, it's not a simple answer to this. Well, one thing we have not had problems to getting developers on board. So, you know, we are 50 projects now, so the developers come, and but we still meet the maybe the 20% that is the most ambitious and want to stay ahead of their competitors and want to stay ahead. So we're not meeting everybody, and we know that. So we are kind of lucky working with the enthusiastic developer, and if they are not enthusiastic enough, maybe we say they doesn't fit into the program. But what I see could be the most challenging thing is that the developers are not as happy with the city when it comes to the priority and the dialogue. So that is we have promised the developers that they will get it, and they doesn't always feel they get it, and we are well. So we are working with this is especially an Oslo thing, because there is so many different kind of projects that also have a priority in the city, and they are kind of overloaded with work, and so we are in the process of establishing better routines so if you promise something, they should be able to keep it, and we are kind of squeezed in the middle. We are owned by the city, and we have promised the priority, and if they're not satisfied, we think it's kind of tough for us to. But what is interesting is that for the projects to be innovative when it comes to energy, to find solutions when it comes to material use, transport, we are actually surprised. So the first years it was more difficult. It was very difficult to get the 5 first projects on board, and then it started running. The first project was kind of tough. We had lots of meetings with developers before they actually dared to trust this. And the first developers who came on board was the public ones.
More questions? No questions, then thank you, Birgit, and hopefully we're going to see in Oslo soon. But once more, thank you.